Hey people, how you doing? Welcome to the Sports Therapy Association podcast, episode 205. How are you? My name is Matt Phillips. I'm creator of RunChatLive.com, and as always, this episode is being recorded live on the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel and Facebook page. If you're listening to the podcast and you like the idea of joining us live, so you can ask our guests questions directly and just hang out with other people who join us live, then that's all you have to do on a Tuesday normally, but sometimes it's a Wednesday. And you just have to come along to the Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel. Or if you prefer Facebook page for some bizarre reason, then go to the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page and you can join us live. Although tonight's going to be quite quiet because I believe there's some football game going on somewhere in the world. So that's fine. We understand. I'm not going to judge you for not joining us if you normally do. Very shortly in this episode entitled, Will AI Ever Replace Human Health Practitioners? We will be joined by special guest, the wonderful Jo Turner, founder of Mehab.co.uk and host of You Matter podcast. This episode is actually part one of a two-part focus on AI in healthcare, because next Tuesday, back to the normal day of Tuesdays, so that'll be July the 16th at 8 o'clock, my guest will be Marcus Slade, who's the co-founder of 𝐒𝐲𝐸𝐵 Technology, and he's going to be discussing AI systems for the modern therapy practice. I'm really excited that it's kind of worked out this way, because tonight we're going to talk about how far AI can help us, and is there any danger, and are we kind of losing our own identity and what we do is really about if we're thinking it could be replaced by AI. It's going to be a wonderful kind of philosophical conversation. And then next week we've got a guy along who's selling loads of AI technology, so it's going to be a challenge for them, but it's going to be exciting because I had a look at what he offers, and there is a load of ways that AI can help the clinic. There's no doubt about it. And if you are listening live and you want to chime in and tell us how AI is helping you, whether it's using ChatGPT to write, notes afterwards or something, or blogging, or maybe using AI in your booking system or reports, whatever it is, then do let us know. Before we start with part one, obviously I have to give a big thank you to last week's guests. I'll bring it up for those of you in YouTube. You can see I'm showing a screenshot here. Last week, it was episode 204, Therapy for Swimmers. I was joined by the wonderful Carla Bickerstaff. I've got to start saying wonderful. It's really become a buzzword. The fantastic Carla Bickerstaff and the lovely Jenny Lane, who gave us an hour of their time sharing their experiences of working with swimmers, including triathletes. Amazing episode. I mean, especially amazing to me because I work with runners and swimmers, and the idea of shoulders and things like that is bizarre to me. It's a part of the body I don't even know exists. So it was lovely to hear two people as experienced as Carl and Jenny talking about some of the things which you really wouldn't imagine you need to know about if you're working with swimmers, and loads of advice of how to work closer with swimmers if that is what you want to do. So yeah, as always, available on all popular podcast apps and YouTube. Right, but tonight, as I've already said, in episode 205, it's going to be Will AI Ever Replace Human Health Practitioners? With my special guest, founder of Mehab.co.uk and host of You Matter podcast, Jo Turner. Hey Jo, how you doing?
Hi Matt, I'm good, thank you.
I'm happy to say that people are coming through the door into the live lounge. We were both saying before, it's just going to be us and Billy No Mates sitting here while everyone else is cheering England on. But Cecily is here. Cecily says, and if you do join us live, then what I can do basically is I can bring your messages up onto the screen so we get to see your lovely face or logo. Cecily says, nope, not watching that. Oh, I can't say that. I'll get cancelled or something. Not watching the game tonight, says Cecily. So I'm just going to hide that. Everyone on the podcast doesn't know any difference. So that's great. So yeah, Jo, thank you so much for coming on the show. I have known about you and followed you for years, but we've never actually seen each other face to face. So this is very special for me. So thank you for giving up your time.
Oh, likewise. Yeah, we've had lots of comments online, haven't we? But
haven't we just? And it's wonderful. It's not like flesh, but it's still the reality, isn't it? So hey, it's as close as we can get. Although you're not that far away. Where are you in the world? What part
I'm in Gloucestershire.
Oh, I'm in South Coast, so it's not too far away.
Okay.
Yeah. So before we start consideration of this question tonight, will AI ever replace human health practitioners? I think it'd be useful for listeners to hear a little bit about yourself, to hear where you're coming from when you answer this question. In particular, I guess, what caused you to create Mehab.co.uk and the podcast, the You Matter podcast?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I am a physiotherapist of now 27 years. Most of my career has been in MSK, and for the last I think it's about 12 years now. I've co-owned a clinic in Gloucestershire. It's 2 clinics now, actually. And I formed Mehab in 2020, I think it was. So after practicing for many years as a physio, I probably had a bit of a career stroke midlife crisis and wanted to go off and do something that wasn't particularly clinical. So I spent a year doing some personal development work and getting coaching myself and enjoyed the process. But there were frequently light bulb moments going off thinking, well, this stuff just is so applicable to healthcare, and I can see how this stuff would support practitioners. And at the end of the year, you could, if you wanted to, train as a coach. So I just kind of thought, yeah, why not? I'll do that. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. COVID hadn't come on the scene at that point. It was 2019. I was just enjoying learning to coach, not knowing what on earth I would do with it. Even when I qualified, I thought, so is this going to be a separate career? Am I going to leave physio? What's going on here? And then we went into the pandemic, and it was blatantly obvious that there were a huge number of clinicians needing support. So slightly by design, but more through circumstance, I decided to form a niche coaching clinicians. And, I guess as it turns out, pandemic was a really good time for me to hone those skills. And it was nice to know that there was such a need out there. But I think really, if I look back, my interest in a coaching style was probably based on the way I've always been as a physio, and maybe the way I've been as a parent and a friend. I've always been very interested in what is driving a person, what's behind their behaviors and what they say. And a lot of my friends tease me that I'll always be the one that asks one more question. And I was the same with patients, in that I always wanted them to see what I saw, which was usually potential, and something I could draw out, and I could help them see and believe and work towards their goals. And then as a clinic owner, very much the same. And I've got a line on my website that says that Mehab was formed partly out of anger. And it was anger at seeing so many clinicians that I generally thought were absolutely brilliant, telling me how they wished they could do better, asking me what course I thought they should go on so that they would be, good enough. And it just, this disconnect was quite frustrating. And I suppose even before I knew about coaching, I was generally trying to help people see how brilliant I thought they were.
I'm just going to jump in there, sorry, but this is going to be really significant for our listeners. In fact, I think I hear a few of them rejoicing, because for our sports therapists, massage therapists, sports rehab therapists, to think that physios have self-doubt, to think that they haven't got it made. And I'm not, it's a little bit joking, but it is a problem in the non-allied health professional industry, because physios are put up on a pedestal thinking, oh yeah, they're the pros, they've done a 4-year degree, they can do anything, they can work for the NHS, and we kind of think they've got it sussed, they can do what they want to do, and they're going to get a good career out of it, and that sports therapists and sports massage therapists are the only ones who get the imposter syndrome and the self-doubt. But you are suggesting that for yourself and for a lot of clinicians, other physios you've met, that this isn't the case.
Not at all. I mean, I've actually, I interviewed another coach on my podcast way back about imposter syndrome feelings, and she gave me a statistic. I think it was something like 75% of the population are likely to experience feelings of imposter syndrome at some point, and within healthcare, it's 96%. And it's supposed to be particularly high in professions where technical ability is valued very highly. And if you marry that, which is obviously the case in healthcare professions, marry that with the personality type that tends to be drawn to physio. Usually you will have been quite high achieving at school, probably in sport as well. We're massive people pleasers, most of us, and this drive to be good and also to be right in a profession where you're dealing with highly unpredictable medium called human beings. And you've got colleagues, that seem to be brilliant. And then you've got doctors, we all work in this hierarchy, don't we? There's always somebody around us that we think is better. And then there's this constant opportunity for improvement. There are courses, there are conversations you can have online. If you're searching for validation that you might not know something or might not know something as well as somebody else. There's just so much out there to feed that feeling. So yes, soft tissue therapists, rehab therapists, do not be under any illusions. I'm quite busy as a coach, and a lot of that is around supporting physios who, don't always.
That's really. I mean, I'm not pleased to hear anybody is suffering or questioning their career choice. But like I say, in the non-allied health professional industries, it's something that undoes the good. Because, like you say, particularly with massage therapists, for example, anybody who wants to rub their hands through oily, hairy backs for a living and not get paid much for it and work really hard and have to do all the laundry afterwards, they're in it not for the money, they're in it for altruistic reasons. It's as close to altruism as a human can get, I think, because you just want to think you're helping make that person better. So it's like you've said, we tend to be people in this career who do want to help others and receive more thank yous than banknotes. So I like the way you said that, the combination of that with the uncertainty of what's going to happen and the fact that maybe it doesn't always work and you've got people around you who you think are better is a pretty dangerous combination, isn't it? And can lead to a lot of stress.
And that technical ability part, we're measured, I don't know about you guys, but from college we're measured against our ability to be technically accurate, and that's what we have in our heads. And sometimes that's I don't know, sometimes that doesn't sit so comfortably as perhaps I'm generalizing, but maybe people in engineering or accounting that are really their brain works in that very precise way and they'll have a right and a wrong answer. I mean, I think a lot of people that go into our professions are, well, if you look at it positively, I think we're multi-talented. Generally we have been good at those subjects, but we've also probably might have been good at art or English or languages and things. And we're often people that connect dots all over the place. So that then to be measured on something so narrow, and to learn to value yourself on that can often feel quite uncomfortable, I think.
One of the problems that I'm wondering whether this is the same for you and other physios, because obviously you mustn't generalize, but you've spoken and you've coached a load of physios, so you probably get to see trends. But one of the things that I think often we feel is unique to us and probably plagues us a bit more is still a lot of the courses out there are delivering information which is outdated. And sometimes it's a little bit incorrect. Sometimes it's just plain wrong. And people are spending £3,000-4,000 coming out after learning in a way which often the instructors put on a bit of a pedestal. And you think, wow, they're amazing. And they're told stuff. Then they come out. And especially these days with the internet, they read something online, but maybe someone shouting in capital letters or whatever it is. And it's like, this is all wrong. You're not doing this. You're not doing this. You're not doing this. And the reaction to that for a lot of soft tissue therapists is either anger, disappointment, and giving up. And I always think that's a tragedy, because these people who are altruistic, who have got so many different skills, who want to help others, are they realize that a lot of the stuff they've been taught, well, not a lot, some fundamental things that they've been taught is not quite accurate. So I'm thinking, I don't know, things like massage can spread cancer, you're breaking down muscle knots, all that sort of stuff. You can cause miscarriage, all these things. For someone to say, actually, that's not quite true. Unfortunately, as human beings, we don't go, oh, that's interesting, tell me. Or we go, yes, it is. Or we go, oh, I'm out. I've got no skills. Does that happen as much in physiotherapy, or is that kind of more unique to our industries?
No, it absolutely does. And I often talk about when I was a young physio, there's a thing called the MACP, and that was kind of the holy grail of your technical skills at that time. To be fair to the MACP, they have changed their offering quite a bit, so I'm not bashing them for this now. But I was put through that course. I was working in a London hospital, and I was put through that, and very pleased to be put on it, but was struggling a lot with the specificity. Even then, where specificity wasn't a dirty word, my brain was just constantly going, oh really, you sure? Definitely. It just doesn't compute with what I see in front of me as humans and what I believed physiotherapy to be when I went into it, until we got onto the pain module, and we started learning about neuroscience and pain physiology, which was more in its infancy then. It was around the sort of Louis Gifford, Mick Thacker era. And to a large extent at that time, pain physiology was the thing that stuffed up all the beliefs around mobilizations and, stretching to a certain extent and soft tissue and neural mobilization. And a lot of my contemporaries got really, like you described, upset and quite angry at what was being challenged. At the time, I found it really refreshing. But I think what happened in my mind was that I didn't go, okay, well, everything I've taught is utterly pointless. I was just perfectly happy with the fact that there was a different explanation for why sometimes the things I was doing worked. And I would encourage people to adopt that approach now and embrace the fact that we are getting better at understanding what happens when we put our hands on people, or when we talk to people, or when we challenge people, or where we give people space to talk, because we're learning to understand how humans work better. And of course, that's going to mean that some of the things were taught, that just look at it that, okay, it doesn't mean I need to stop doing what I was doing. I just need to have more modern thinking about why I choose to do it, why it might work, or why it might not work. And that's why specificity is under the cosh at the moment, because I think a lot of the modern thinking really doesn't back up the fact that it always matters in minute detail what technique you choose, or how particular you are about the way you prescribe an exercise or perform a technique. But it really is worthwhile learning the physiology and the modern thinking behind it. And actually, Matt, from my experience of people like you and Anna Mazzieri and Matt, what's Matt's surname? It's escaping me in the moment.
Scarsbury.
Yes, Matt Scarsbury.
Scarsbury.
When I listen to people like you guys, and I don't wish to put my colleagues down, but you guys are really interrogating that evidence with vulnerability and honesty, and hats off to you, because it often more directly challenges what you do, because so much of your work is hands-on. But you're finding ways to reframe it. I mean, Anna Mazzieri talks about touch as a context, doesn't she, and a platform for engagement with clinicians. And to me, that's a much more open-minded and generous approach to emerging evidence. I don't think there's a need to be so fearful and defensive.
It's it's great. And Anna Maria Mazzieri, definitely, and a few others as well are trying. We're trying as much as we can to show, these things aren't quite right, but now we're getting to know we're getting to know now, thanks to research and evidence, what probably is happening, why people are feeling better when we've got our hands in you, and all the other things which come with it. So it should be. This is the struggle I think educators have got. If you manage to get through to the person in front of you and treat them in the right way at the right time, then you can turn it from being angry and sad to something quite exciting and something, that's tricky for educators.
It's also tricky for your relationship with patients. Equally, patients aren't all there going, oh, right, okay, so everything I've been told for the last 20 years by health professionals isn't quite right. And some people get quite angry about that.
It's true.
Other people just be really fascinated. And again, that's personality types. But, maybe as a clinician, sometimes you've got to sit with the discomfort of having slightly pissed your patient off for the short term while you both go through that process.
It's true, and not being scared that that's the fact. I think that we've had that a few times. It's as soon as you can realise that not quite knowing the answer and being able to say to your patient, "Oh, this is interesting. This isn't what I would have expected, but that's fine. We'll work with this." And maybe patients, probably most of them, are not going to be worried. They're probably going to think, "Wow, I'm really glad this guy's really looking into it. It's not black."
Well, that's one of the absolute tenements of coaching, actually, to be okay with not knowing. In the context of coaching, it's not knowing how a session is going to go, and also having no idea what the right answer is. And I know you need to keep that within certain limits, sometimes within healthcare, but it is so freeing to just give yourself the space and give the patient the space to not immediately know the answer.
Freeing is a good word. It's freeing. That's what healthcare, like you say, not all the time, but it's a lot of the time that should be how we feel. because we are working with individuals and they are going to be a little bit different depending on who they are, and you've got to listen more. Anyway, the reason we have talked about this, happy podcast listener, for so much now is we haven't actually directly addressed the question yet, but I think with that conversation, it will make it clearer now where Joe's coming from when we start addressing the actual title of this episode. So I think we're going to go down there now. So just to repeat, in case you've got lost and you think this is in the podcast episode I thought I was listening to, this is, let's just scroll down now. Here we go. So the title is, Will AI Ever Replace Human Health Practitioners? And I did mention in the advert for this episode, the piece recently published in The Guardian, which had the header, First NHS Physiotherapy Clinic Run by AI to Start This Year. For those of you who love the pictures, we'll put a little picture of that up for you so you can see. Let's bring that up. There we go. So, I mean, it's an interesting piece, and we're going to kind of dissect it now. But in particular, Joe, you saw this, and we'll look into the whys and hows shortly. But you saw this piece, and it inspired you to write a piece for this month's MSKMag by the Physio Matters team. Yeah, let's jump into it. Why you're a busy person? Why did you suddenly think I've got to write something about this? What was it about it that you didn't like?
So I deliberately misunderstood the articles, looking at the fact that this is written in a newspaper that wants to grab attention. I know this will have been written in a certain way to overplay the fact that it's written by the clinic. It's claimed that the clinic is being run by AI. I am sure the team at Flock and the people running this organization wouldn't make that claim, but I do understand it makes a headline. But I chose to take it at face value. And I hope in my article I got across that the bit that actually made me angry doesn't have a great deal to do with AI itself. So, like most of us, I accept that there are many, many positives to AI, and we're seeing great ways that it can support, particularly the administrative side of our clinic. But the wording in this article was, this is an AI physiotherapy clinic, and it referred to an AI physiotherapist. So if you were a layperson reading this article, I would imagine you would think, great, the whole thing from start to finish is a AI service. There's not going to be any humans. That's interesting. They've managed to take the entire profession and computerize it. The bit that really made me angry is not that AI is coming. It's that it feels to me like we're letting so much of our profession go that it's possible to write an article like this. I hope that most people would be able to interpret it for what it is, but the idea that the complex web that forms not just physiotherapy, but soft tissue therapy and rehab particularly, could literally just be taken by a bot or by AI that's what's infuriating. I'm almost less angry with the AI side of things. I'm more angry with us for being so lost in the wilderness for so long, I think, about who we are, so that we're not championing our brilliance as therapists. So that, an article like this would just be ridiculous because everyone would know what physiotherapy is and what soft tissue therapy is and what rehab is. Does that answer the question?
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, I think you are giving the general public, don't use the word intelligence, but I think a lot of people will see this and the newspaper knows what they're doing. And I agree with you. They will have an image of, like, you just going and you talk to a computer or face the computer. They're thinking like something out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something like that. No, but something like that. It'll be some computer face on the screen. Or even some people think, oh, they're going to be robots. They're going to, that's the kind of image, because that's what people still think, AI is all about and that. So it is a shame. It's a bit of I agree it's written that way. Or maybe it's just us two are ultra cynical and we're looking into it. And it seems such a shame as well, because I always get so excited when mainstream newspapers do put an article in there about healthcare. Like we've had some great stuff by Roger Kerry. We've had Mary O'Keefe from Ireland as well about back pain. I think Derek Griffin once, he had a piece as well in the Independent. But then they get eclipsed by other stuff, and it seems such a shame because media could educate people so much more.
There was it wasn't so long ago that we had the Daily Mail article about physiotherapy being a quick consultation and a sheet of exercises, and it works because patients use that phrase almost on a daily basis with me. Oh, I had this experience where I just had a single consultation and a sheet of exercises, and that's become shorthand for a service that fell short of my expectations. And lo and behold, the next newspaper article is, oh, look, in theory, a bot can do those things. Well, of course it can. If that's that's the first line in my article. Reduce what people understand a service to be to something incredibly simple, and then the next bit of information is, oh, and by the way, we can automate that. So there's two sides to it, and I'm not here to slam my NHS colleagues because I know that in so many good departments that isn't the experience of physiotherapy. But if that happens even enough times for enough numbers of people to be using this to describe the experience they've had, then of course an article like this is going to land beautifully, because that's all I got. So if it comes from a bot and I don't have to leave my home and it's much more simple and I don't have to wait 20 weeks for it, marvelous. Interestingly, Matt, I met a lady at a recent Physio First AGM. It might even be this service she was involved in, and she was telling me about it, and it sounded brilliant because it was a triage service. And she was describing how there was a really good collection questionnaire, so it was really able to sift through the right referral pathway for this particular person, and then they were distributed, they were sent very quickly to the right department, and they trialed it, and the physios were loving it because they were getting less inappropriate referrals, and a lot of the information that they needed had been taken care of beforehand. Now, if this is the same service, then it's a really good thing. But she most definitely would not have called it an AI physiotherapy clinic. I was well on. I was sitting next to her at dinner, and it just sounded really, really exciting. But this isn't. If it is that, then this isn't presenting it honestly.
Definitely. If it's something like First NHS Physiotherapy Clinic assisted by AI or something, or it's just that run by AI, it just makes you think it's human free, which is I think. But we'll talk about it in more detail about what you think. How we are a little bit guilty for people believing this and that. So let's just bring up onto the screen. So like I say, you wrote a wonderful piece let's change this one. Let's get rid of that. You wrote a wonderful piece in MSKMag, which we have talked about before on the show. It's a monthly, it's in paper as well. I love the fact that Jack Chew and Jack March have decided, let's go back to magazine form as well. So you can get it in good old fashioned magazine form, like Runner's World or something. But it's also online. There's a free, it's like a membership thing where it can be free and just get, I think, summaries and things, and then there's a very reasonable introductory rate where you just get a certain amount, and there's full membership, all sorts of things. We've talked about it in other shows.
A couple of free articles. In fact, mine was free this month. A couple of them each month are free.
To give you a little tease, and then you don't have to sign up straight away. But in these days where you can get some terrible information from lots of places, when you've got a product which is giving quality information, there's been other stuff. We had Ben Wybrow on the show as well, which I loved, that thing about Sit in the Mud, which I thought was a wonderful piece. You get them straight onto the show. It's wonderful. So yeah, there is quality stuff in there. So I would consider looking at it. And again, don't be put off by the fact, oh, but it's for physios, isn't it? It's not. I know it's called Physio Matters, but Jack Chew back in the day started the whole Physio Matters podcast and everything when there wasn't such a voice for sports therapists. It was just all about physiotherapy, and he's been a key player along with people along the way like yourself and Gemma Oliver and all the other people involved in the Physio Matters too, to break down these walls and make it more multidisciplinary. So don't be put off. He can't change the name now. It can't be Multidisciplinary Matters. It just wouldn't work. So it's still called Physio Matters.
Everyone matters.
Everyone matters. That'd be lovely, in an ideal world. But it can't be that way. But yeah, definitely don't let that put you off, sports therapists and sports massage therapists. And if you listen to the show, believe me, you will have the information to understand everything that's written in there. In fact, it will give you confidence because you will read stuff which supports what we've been talking about and what our guests have been talking about. Let me bring up for the visuals of you. Let's go to, there we go. So this was, I love the title, by the way. This was fantastic. I don't know whether it was sarcasm, anger, it was just subtle innuendo, but yeah, ChatGPT. This was Joe Turner's title for this. ChatGPT, can you tell me if you want my job? Tell me about that title. What were you trying to get at with that?
Yeah, so it was a little bit cheeky, almost using the thing I was criticizing to create the catchy title for me. And also, yeah, trying to get the answer from the thing that I was trying to keep away from my job.
Yeah. But it's interesting because it wouldn't be able to answer, would it? Because by definition, AI doesn't have desires yet, or it would just be able to give you a calculated response to what other people have said. So it's, sorry, I interrupted to continue.
No, don't worry, I forgot what it was. I think that was title number 5. Jack 2 and I had a fun WhatsApp exchange at about midnight, trying to get more clever dick titles, and that was the last one.
Did you give the last one?
I did, of course. Yeah.
Oh, you got the
Thanks
last word in the Jack 2. That is, yeah, good. I'm pleased. Yeah, I'm pleased. I can only but imagine some of his offerings. But
I think he said at the end, yeah, I put a shit one in because I wanted you to do better.
Of course he did. Yeah. It brings people together, our Jack. It's amazing. Great support. But yeah, great piece. And like that is actually free. If you look it up, if you put in MSKMag Joe Turner, then that will come up and you'll be able to read it. But obviously we're going to talk about it in the next 25, 30 minutes as well. So on the next page, it was interesting. I mean, you kind of explain in the paragraph up there, let me just put it on big so people who are watching can see that. You said, yeah, what infuriates me is that this is called an AI physiotherapy clinic and the bot is called an AI physiotherapist. So it's, yeah, it's taking away all kind of human interaction. It's just a recipe. But I love this at the top. You said, listening, encouraging, building trust and confidence, using touch as a context for imparting knowledge and understanding. So that's just going to be beautiful for anybody who does use touch. But yeah, can you expand a little bit on that and why?
So I was trying to create a list of the things which a bot probably couldn't do.
Exactly.
Now, I do understand that you could argue that a bot could appear to listen and it could be encouraging. But these next bits, building trust and confidence, that's a subtle, complex skill. So just as an example, I think the day after I wrote this article, I had a patient in who seemed like just a straightforward hip replacement post-op. We were going through routine assessment and our conversation, if you'd listened in, would have sounded very straightforward, nothing particularly unusual about it. And this man had tears rolling down his face while he was saying it. And it took a little bit of silence, actually, and then some gentle questions to ascertain that this chap had recently been diagnosed with OCD, and the fact that he couldn't mow his lawn while he was non-weight bearing post-op was absolutely killing him. And that was the most important thing. Now, yes, a bot could probably have, an advanced AI situation could have probably got that information out. But, how would he feel putting that in, knowing that the information that's coming back is not from someone who sat and listened and assimilated it in real time? It's a combination of thoughts and opinions that have been fed in over time, and the algorithms have sorted it out. And okay, it might get to that point where it's that sophisticated, but I think those listening skills, and then really letting someone know that you understand, then finding the ways to help them work out a solution. I mean, that's the other thing. I'm happy to be corrected, but I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that if you can help a patient or a client create their own solution, then their belief in it, their understanding of it, and their willingness to stay with a rehab program is so much greater. And that's a really complex skill, because perhaps when you're a less experienced therapist, you do learn recipes and you teach and you try and tell and you try and fix a lot, and sometimes that's still appropriate. But as you get more experience, you learn to give that space to yourself and the client. We were talking about this a little bit before we came on air, weren't we? And allow the solution to develop rather than it being a direct question and answer. I put this question in, I get an answer, and yes, that sounds okay, and off I go. Oh, but I'm doing this rehab program that I was taught to do, but it just feels off, and I don't believe in it, so I'm not going to do it. Need to go and have another conversation. These are all really subtle skills, and touch as a context. Yeah, I appreciate your audience is going to pick up on that one. So, maybe that's the most crazy thing about the article. Yes, there are arguments going on about hands-on and hands-off, but that article just completely wipes hands-on off the table, doesn't it? As if there's absolutely no benefit whatsoever. Now, we talked earlier in this discussion about the fact that you've got to be modern in your interpretation and your understanding as to why touch might be helpful. But it is. We know there are so many patients for whom touch is a really, really helpful adjunct. Do you know, at the weekend, I was on a Pete O'Sullivan course the weekend before last, and I was talking to a physio who works with psychologists, and he said, the psychologists shared with me their frustration that we have the remit to use touch. And obviously it needs to be appropriate, and touch for some people is a highly inappropriate tool, but where it is appropriate, the psychologist was saying, we're really envious because it is such a sort of portal, if you like, into connection and to establishing trust, but we're completely not allowed to do it. It's not in the toolkit of a psychologist. So yeah, I think in those paragraphs, I was just trying to think of some of the things that really are part of that human interaction that at the moment, like I say, please prove me wrong, anybody out there, but I don't think AI is there yet. And I kind of hope it won't be. It's so hard not to sound like a Luddite here, and I was very nervous putting the article out because I thought, I'm just laying myself open to people going, oh, how old's this physio? Oh, yes, a bit old, doesn't like computers, wants to do lots of hands-on. It would be so easy to fall into that trap and lay myself open to that. But where was I going with that before I got into doing silly voices? I think it's too easy to give everything over to technology and not. I guess that's the crux of my article. Let's hold on to humanity. We know that loneliness is a huge problem. We know that too much screen time for our kids, more than anybody, is a problem. We do need human connection. And technology is sophisticated enough to mimic some of that, but I really hope it's not good enough to totally replace it.
Not yet. Give us a few more centuries before that happens. Yeah. Do you think part of the problem is the public perception, and maybe even some therapists' perception, and the tutors that teach therapists, is that physio or sports therapy, or whatever it is a lot of the time we still think it is something that's done to you. People say, oh yeah, I'm going to have some physio done. And as soon as you think that, as soon as you think you're getting fixed because they're doing this mobilization or they're giving you this massage, then that does automatically take out the idea of, oh, I'm going for a chat. I'm going to go to somebody who's going to listen to me, who's going to support me, who's going to facilitate me, who's going to take into consideration how I am and all sorts of other levels, as opposed to just my knee. Yeah. Is that part of the problem?
Absolutely, I think it is. And, also, maybe I have written this article from a very particular perspective of who I am as a therapist. And I won't apologize for that, but I do accept that there are people out there who think, the chat is not that important. It is about doing stuff to people. There's a lot of patients that hold that belief very dearly. Lots of patients that come to my clinic. But hey, we're intelligent people, and that's part of the thing, isn't it? Your ability to decipher who the person in front of you is and what they need. And if what they need is for you to, give them what they expect, and there is a justifiable reason for it, fair enough. I'm not in the camp of just give the patient what they want when you're doing something completely non-evidence based and is not going to improve. Then hopefully you can educate, but it's hard work. It's we can't expect patients to have come on the career journey that we've been on over the last 10, 20 years. I don't know what's happened in accountancy or law or other professions. We've got a job on our hands to bring these patients with us. And I think, but we do have to put the work in for that. That's what we owe our patients. Otherwise, bots can do it.
It's interesting going back to the Guardian article, because some of the stuff that's kind of put in there and almost hidden, let me go back to bring this up. The article, when it goes into the nitty-gritty of it, for people who kind of read the small print almost, it does kind of say what we're saying. Let me just bring this up into a it says in there, however, some in the industry say that AI cannot yet replicate the skill of a fully trained physiotherapist, and that treatment needs to be nuanced due to the complexity of cases. So, I mean, yeah, you think, no shit, Sherlock kind of thing. It's like, thanks for including that, by the way, on page 3 of the article or something. But then it goes into what I thought was quite disturbing, because stats. People love giving stats, and I question how much of this will stay in the minds of the readers. It talks about some of the success of the pilot scheme that they put out. I think it was in hospitals to student doctors or something. They started testing this AI clinic on them and seeing what the results were like. And then you get the stuff which the public really like to see. It says, I'll read it out just for people listening to the podcast. All of those surveyed patients from the NHS pilot said that their experience with Flock had been at least equivalent to seeing a human physiotherapist, and 57% of patients said they thought the AI experience was better.
It's a bit worrying, isn't it?
Well, it worries me, one, if that happened, and two, what message that's going to give to humans, because that's a really kind of like science fiction. Oh wow, look, it's even better than humans. Over half the people thought it was better than a human being. But I think, if, like you said, if you're speaking to the person who put this trial together and actually had all of the information and all of the kind of data they collected, I wonder whether that statement there is a little bit misleading.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? If we do take it at face value, there's still questions to be asked behind that, aren't there? So, what was the human physiotherapist experience? And I think we need to look at ourselves and ask, if that is true and that's a correct stat, then what the hell is going on that is the conclusion that can be drawn by 57% of patients. Joanne Elphinstone shared another article that she'd found when all this was circulating, and I think the sort of crux of that article was another study where they had put patients in a double-blind trial where they inputted their symptoms into a computer, and they received a response either generated by AI or generated by a healthcare professional. I think it was a doctor. I think it was a GP thing, not a physio thing. And I can't remember the results, but more people felt that the bot's response was more empathic, which again, on the face of it, you're like, oh God, well, empathy is the thing we're talking about here. So if the bot's beating us on that, then, we're screwed. But I thought about that, and I thought, okay, well, if I was the clinician in that scenario, and I had just received someone's symptoms on text, and then I had to type my response, it's going to take me quite a long time to generate the words that I would say quite easily. And I'm probably going to write it in a more technical way than I would actually say it. So what they receive is probably very different to what they would receive verbally from me. So is that a fair trial? And, one thing that I would entirely concede is that AI is much better at generating that kind of language instantly. So, the effort level on that clinician after doing 4 of those, they're probably going to think, oh God, just bang out a quick paragraph. But that isn't how human healthcare works. We don't receive emails and respond to them by text.
That's a very interesting point. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, the AI with a flick of a switch just manages to put together something which sounds full of empathy, whereas the text sent by or the email sent by an actual human,
I mean, maybe
after
I'm
some
clutching at
thought,
straws,
yeah.
but
No, I think it's a very valid point. But as we look deeper into this again and start ignoring the interesting kind of science fiction side of stuff, we realize that behind this, like you alluded to in the beginning, it is a triage system. The AI is still being fed through humans and it's still being checked, and it's not human free at all. I think, let me just check what. Oh, no, that's not one. Let me just see. It's definitely, they mentioned. Let me go to the next one. I think. This was annoying as well. This annoyed me. More than 4 in 5 participants reported that their symptoms had improved during treatment with the platform. 97% of the patients who self-referred to Flock within NHS Lothian received an automated triage outcome. 92% were immediately approved for AI physio and given access to the appointment the same day. 5% automatically referred to another NHS service, such as a GP. But these massive percentages again make it look like just a human-free AI robot has managed to make you symptom-free, and it's, if anything, it's just kind of persuading people to actually use this system instead of seeing a human. But
well, one interesting thing, Matt, sorry to interrupt you.
oh,
When I was talking to Jack about this before I wrote the article, he said actually he's getting quite a lot of business out of this circumstance, because he said, well, I think what's happening is quite often they will get through that first stage, get an AI physio assessment, and the immediate outcome of that is you need to go and see a human physio. And he'd had 3 or 4 people in his clinic that week coming in with that information. Okay, I've tried the AI thing, but it's told me to go and see a
really?
human.
That's
So
interesting to know.
yeah, as you say, it's not. This article suggests it's human free, but it's probably not very far down the chain that a human gets involved or was very much involved in creating the information that it's, well, obviously creating the information that's fed in the first place.
Definitely. And even there was a quote from the actual creator. I think I missed it. Oh no, it wasn't from the creator. It was from the CSP Health Informatics lead. That wants to read that out. CSP Health Informatics lead, Ewan McComiskey, excuse my pronunciation if that's wrong, said of the AI clinic, there is no doubt that more needs to be done to tackle huge NHS waiting lists, particularly for musculoskeletal services, and AI has huge potential to be an adjunct. So that's probably, they should be in capital letters and bold, to the work of physiotherapists. However, AI cannot yet replicate the clinical judgment and skills of a physiotherapist who is required to be registered with a statutory regulator, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's probably the most important chunk, which should come somewhere near the beginning. Like, you know, like the same way as if we're writing a blog, we have to say, this is not medical advice, you should always see it, blah, blah, blah. You know, it should be like a, but it's not, it's kind of later on in the article. So
no, and I was, I had a bit of a dig at the CSP in my article, but stating that why were we not hearing about it from them? Why were they just a token narrative balancing statement 3/4 of the way through the article? But I imagine Ewan McComiskey is not very pleased either about the way his comment was used, almost as a kind of, it's a bit like the other one you quoted, by the way, physio is quite complex actually. You might need a human.
It's interesting. And then they concluded as well that no red flags have been missed, which again was interesting. But then maybe red flags is something that AI could actually be used, because that is a little bit more clear cut. We've got, I mean, it's still not infallible. You still can often pick up on situations by those kind of open-ended questions and peeling back the layers and stuff. But I can imagine that's somewhere which a unison between humans and AI could be used. There's an interesting comment here. I'm just going to read out from Debs Thurlow Rowley. I'm going to read this out, Debs. Thanks for leaving the comment. This is a great subject. Brilliant to highlight this. Thank you. Within the surgery side of the NHS, AI is being used in abdominal surgery, e.g. endometriosis, pelvic adhesions. Recovery time is much shorter, less error, and handshake the robot, ... And then it moves on to... and check the robots. Oh, the robotics are still controlled by a surgeon. Could AI be something we can work with and open our minds to assist? As you said, Matt, AI alone will still need human input, surely. So yeah, that's a good example, Debs, of where the two can work together. There are some things which a robot or something programmed can probably do better than a human, and it can. And the accuracy every single time it does, it will be much more precise than a human because it's just made to move that way. But it still needs the human input behind it.
And if what we did as therapists was as specific as abdominal surgery, then yes, they could definitely see that. But yeah, I mean, I hope Debs has heard you and I give a balanced argument to this. I don't think either of us are saying no AI. Thank you very much.
Good question there, Debs. Thank you for your input. Cecily Hislop has said, as someone who has to triage patients, I also work for opticians, it's worrying that the nuances that humans show could potentially be missed by AI. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Humans are complex, not complicated. It's like loads of different stuff going on depending on the moment of the day, what's in the room, the context and everything.
And I'm sure, you expect you'd agree, Matt, and people listening, it's often what a human being doesn't say, which is important. So you've got to, a bot is going to hear the question and take it at face value. Well, surprise, surprise, humans tell you the acceptable thing, and there's often something really important underneath that you've just got to dig a little bit, or just be quiet for a moment until they actually decide to tell you the thing that is important. But so you could get a very good answer and a very correct answer for the thing you decide to share first, and then the consultation's done and off you go with your solution. But a skilled clinician will work out that maybe the first thing you said wasn't the thing.
Good point. Yeah, definitely. So what would you like clinicians, whether it's physios or any other type of healthcare professional, what would you like them to take away from your blog? What should they be reflecting and thinking, oh, maybe I should be doing this a bit better, or maybe how can I help avoid this sort of thing taking over?
I suppose my main hope was to stir people up by being, perhaps a little bit more provocative than I would be verbally. But at the end, my last paragraph is really a rallying cry to, come on, people. We need to be talking about how good we are and stop debating what we are. Well, we can continue that debate about what we are, but that shouldn't diminish our confidence in our ability to help people and support people in a really, really important way. And I'll keep doing all I can to support and encourage clinicians' confidence. And I do that, partly hopefully because I'm a nice person, but also because I want our professions to survive. And if we're all here wringing our hands, lacking confidence, searching for identity, we're not going to be up to the job of defending what we do. And, we do risk what potentially is starting to happen already, being told that we're not, our services aren't important enough, or, there isn't enough evidence that we are better than a robot. We really think we have to start shouting a little bit louder about how bloody brilliant we are.
Once we've convinced ourselves, which is sometimes the issue, isn't it?
Yes.
It's interesting in soft tissue therapy. I wonder whether sometimes as well, because some therapists, not all therapists are, when you meet them and you see them and you read what they were doing and stuff, you think, well, this person is not worried or hasn't got any imposter syndrome as well. But a lot of the time they are doing a massive amount of cupping or dry needling, or they're really invested in some kind of manual therapy. And I wonder whether sometimes they with the right patient, that kind of stuff might really help. It might form part of that care that patient needs at that particular time. But I wonder whether investing a lot into doing something to the patient again kind of maybe hides a little inside burning thing going, I need something to do to this person, I can't, it didn't, because that again puts it into I'm doing this to you, you couldn't do this to yourself without me. And I think that's why that becomes very attractive sometimes, rather than considering, maybe it is about the communication or the listening. Does that make sense? Do you think sometimes?
Yeah, totally. I think it's a really reassuring thing to, we all remember when we first qualified, when frankly we hadn't got a clue what we were doing, just to be able to deliver something that sounded quite plausible and, seemed to go down well with the patient and occasionally got good results. That's really reassuring. I think perhaps the other side of it is people who question often tend to be, well, maybe this is a generalization, but perhaps there is a trait that people who question things question themselves as well, obviously, because if you're questioning your profession, you're going to question yourself within that profession. You might be on the more sensitive side because you pick up on how people are feeling about things, how your colleagues seem to be reacting. And that's, you made a perfectly valid comment that to be championing ourselves, we've got to believe it ourselves first. And that is the challenge. And I suppose you asked me at the start why I formed Mehab, and that is the short answer, because I recognize that there is a collective lack of confidence and lack of sense of identity. And I understand those challenges. I have them all continuously myself. But if we can work together, I think the more we talk about it and the more we talk about solutions as well as problems and methods and strategies that we have found personally to overcome some of these insecurities, then as a profession we move forward.
Very nice, well said. It's 8:56 already. That went very quickly. I think Katrina Lake deserves the final word. You quoted her inside the MSKMag, and we'll bring that up on the screen because it is beautiful. It's a lovely quotation. It kind of sums up what we're saying. So Katrina Lake is a colleague of yours, works?
She owns a practice in Abingdon.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And she kind of mentioned this, just rolled off her tongue. Did she always come out with these fantastic kind of like...
Well, I don't know Katrina very well, but yeah, maybe she just threw it out one evening on my Facebook group. So yeah, maybe she's a quote woman.
So Katrina Lake said, I can see AI replacing the brain of exercise prescription and progression, but I don't see it replacing the complexity of human interaction. Pretty good. Powerful words. Very nice. Good job, Katrina. Excellent. Right. Let me get rid of that so I can see you again. So, right, time has beaten us, but people have listened. Hopefully, if you have been affected by this and you've got some more questions, or maybe you'd like to get in contact with Jo or follow Jo, then we talked about the website earlier on. Let's bring a screenshot for people who have joined us on YouTube. I've got a little screenshot here for you people of mehab.co.uk. Let's bring this up. There you go. Lovely website again, by the way. Really nice. Very nice. Let's put on effort. So yeah, mehab.co.uk, and there's blogs there, and it's a community. There's a Facebook page as well linked to it, which is a private group. But what sort of people do you get joining up in the Facebook group then?
And they're all clinicians and clinicians of all types. So I don't have many questions on the entry, but you have to tell me what kind of clinician you are.
Okay, so once again, it's not just for physios, it's for any clinician who's kind of interested in, they've got questions and they want to chat about it.
And that's called Mehab, in a highly clever play on words.
Mehab, I like it. I see what you did there. Very good. And also, of course, there's the 𝐤𝐢 podcast. Oh, happy birthday, by the way, 40 episodes. You forgot about that.
Not quite up to your 205. I was proud of my 40th.
But no, I was looking through them, and it's interesting. I went back to the earliest episodes, and I think it's the first or second episode you're talking about how we identify ourselves in our careers, imposter syndrome. So it's all the same topics which we've had the joy of talking to guests about on this podcast as well. So there will be things there for people to listen to. How do you kind of, not sell, but how do you kind of present this podcast? Who do you think would want to listen to it and benefit from it?
Well, again, it's aimed at clinicians of any persuasion and description. I do have a few people who are not clinicians who listen to it. I'm not quite sure what they get out of it, but well, actually, I suppose the topics imposter syndrome and burnout, things like that, do apply probably across any profession. But it is specifically for it's designed for clinicians. Most of my guests are clinicians, apart from that 40th birthday one, which was my husband.
Indeed.
That was an indulgence. And yeah, it's I just try to, I guess I describe it as conversations around everything outside what happens in the treatment room, which isn't entirely accurate because all the thoughts go around in your head while you're in the treatment room. But I don't tend to talk about clinical techniques and things like that. It's more about the clinician and what's going on for you.
Lovely. Very nice. And I love how you say it. It's worth having a look at the website because it will cause reflection. The way you write and the way you present things, I think, is wonderful in the sense that it will make the reader actually stop and pause and think. And I think that's probably your intention. And I love the way you kind of say it in the about section how we are quite giving people. We like to help others, and we get into a business model where we have to see every person, and the more people we fit into a day, which has its problems as well. But then we do run the severe problem of not actually thinking about ourselves and looking after ourselves, which is where these issues come from. And that actually, as you comment so rightly on the website, that can lead to us actually delivering a worse service and not delivering the best care to our patients. So it's like we're eating our own tail sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's interesting point you made there.
Yeah, and I never want to give people the impression that I want to encourage self-care just so that you can be better for other people. And I often make the statement, you deserve to be well because you're a human being, just as your patients do. And if the bonus is that you're delivering a better service, great. But I would hate to think that I'm just kind of driving the machine to make us better at giving to other people.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And also the coaching, of course, as well, which you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. If people are interested in coaching and kind of mentoring, then how do they contact you? Is that via the website?
Best thing, if you're on the website, the best thing is to click on the book a call link, which will take you straight to my Calendly link. But yeah, actually, that's the only way to get that directly. But if you contact me via email or via my LinkedIn or on Facebook Messenger or anything, I'll send you that link. And I always start with I hate the name discovery call. I don't know why I hate it, but it's just anyway, a call where we work out whether you like me and whether I think coaching can help you.
That's fair enough. That's great. A discovery call. So yeah, people can email you. They can follow you if they want on Twitter. You're quite active on Twitter. So that is at @Mehab_Joe. On Facebook, like I say, there's the Mehab private group, Mehab.
Mehab is the Facebook group.
Mehab is the Facebook group. And then also Substack.com as well, which more and more people are turning to now is a wonderful site, and that's very much connected to the MSKMag. But if you go to Substack.com and type in Joe Turner in the search, then you'll see all the blogs and things that Joe writes, and also you can subscribe and get updates when any new blogs come along. And it's a little bit...
I think now you can get the podcast off Substack as well.
Oh, wonderful. There you go. Great place to get the podcast as well. So there you go. Lots of ways to get in touch with Joe Turner. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us tonight.
Thank you,
very much
Matt.
Appreciate it. I think a few people have joined us live. Thank you, people who joined us live as well. You are summing it up very well. Deb Thurlow says, this has been fabulous. Well said, Joe. Thanks, Matt. And Nikki Mansfield says, great point as well. I want someone
to put in the chat who's won the football. I'm vaguely interested in that.
No, but actually don't listen to that, please, people, because I don't. I'm going to watch it and without knowing the result.
Okay, no, don't write it in the chat.
On this occasion, I never thought I'd ever say this in my life. Please ignore Joe Turner. That's the only time I'm ever going to say it. But yes, thank you to people who joined us live and everyone who listened to the podcast. So next Tuesday, it'll be back on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So this will be July the 16th. We have part 2 of our focus on AI and healthcare. So we're going to be looking at some of the technology which you can use in clinic. It's going to be with Marcus Slade, co-founder of 𝐕𝐆𝐢 Technology, who will be discussing AI systems for the modern therapy practice. I'm hoping people who have listened to this podcast will come to this and then challenge our Marcus a little bit, or maybe you don't need to, but it'll be interesting to put these two together and see what we come up with. If you do want to join us, then like I say, just Sports Therapy Association YouTube channel or the Facebook page, 8 o'clock. Next Tuesday, July the 16th. Thank you very much, Nikki Mansfield, for not telling me the football, the halftime score. Oh, it's still going on. Is it great?
I'm going to guess that's good. That's quite a positive vibe message.
You can never tell with Nikki Mansfield, honestly. Oh, really? She'd be great at poker. Yeah. You would never know. Could go either way. Right. Thanks again, Joe Turner. Really appreciate giving us time. And hopefully we will see some of you for the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.